Hi everyone, this is Dave with Return to the Vintage. Welcome back to the channel. Today I'm going to start a series to help beginner resellers of antique and vintage items that don't know where to start or what to do. This will be a weekly series that's going to start with sourcing and then all the way through shipping and customer service of eBay customers. So today I'm going to start with sourcing, and most new resellers fail because they buy the wrong things or they pay the wrong price. Not because they don't know how to sell, but if they're out and looking for items and they're just not buying the right things, they're going to fail in the end. So today I'm going to cover, first of all, how I go about my sourcing, where I go about my sourcing, and as I go through this initial list, the things to keep in mind that I think about when going in is making sure I get things for the right price, and then also when I'm thinking ahead, it's doing that research to see, what's going to be there, or when I'm there, trying to find as quick as I can if it's something that's worth paying for. So my first source is garage and yard sales. Now I'm in New England, so in the Northeast we only get a good 3-4 months of outdoor garage sales. So I try to maximize my time during those seasons. Now, before going to a garage sale, I try to do research in advance. So a lot of times you'll see on Facebook there are garage sale pictures. There's advertisement about town-wide garage sales, and then you'll see each of the different homes and what they'll be offering. What I do before going is the night before, I'll send messages. Hey, like I saw you have vintage items, you have antique items. What types of things do you have? That way I can be ready in advance and I can think through where I'm going to go first and where I'm going to spend most of my time. If there are pictures, it's even better. I can see what will be there. And usually, if there's someone that has a couple of antique items, it could be a collector of even more. So I'll really target those that I can do some research for in advance. And then when I'm there at a garage sale or a yard sale, I'm okay to pass on something if I know it's not going to be for the right price. So even if I love something and I see it and I want it and I think it's going to sell, if I don't get it for the right price, it's not worth exploring any further. And for me, the right price when I'm looking at something, and really everything I do, is knowing that I can double the amount that I pay for, if not more. For me personally, that's just the way I like to operate. I don't really sell anything less than $15. So for me, I'm thinking if I buy this, will I be able to 2x or 3x my amount? But like I said, I'm okay to walk away from a deal. But unfortunately, at garage sales and yard sales, there's a lot of opportunity for negotiation, especially if you're paying for cash. So that's my number one. My number two is actually auctions. You can do them online, also in person. That's another case where you can do a ton of research in advance, especially if it's an online auction. You can spend a lot of time to see which items would be the most well suited for your store, and also what you can get for a good price to resell at 2x or 3x. In-person auctions are a little more difficult. In-person auctions have actually been a better opportunity for me to learn of what things will cost in the long run, good for education. But online auctions, it's easy to get carried away when people start bidding a higher and higher and higher. But what I'll do is if I see a good online auction, I'll kind of do my research ahead of time, set a price to say, hey, I'm not going to go above this amount, because if I do, it's going to get into that margin that just won't work for me. But I think that's a really good resource. Again, it's available in different parts of the country. For me, I don't do anything that's like shipping, so it would have to be something that's available for local pickup. My third best source is estate sales. Again, just because of where I'm located in the Northeast, I usually have to go to those year round. Now, they can also be very difficult and spotty in terms of the items that are available. I try not to go to too many estate sales if I can help it. But I think estate sales, you can do so much research in advance of those. There are websites like estate sales, I think it's estatesales.net. Facebook will always have postings for auction for estate sales and show all the different items that are going to be available, especially if it's picture by picture. You can do the research in advance. I'm not the type that researches and then shows up like at 7:45 for like an 8:30 opening for an estate sale, I tend to trickle in later. I just don't want to spend my morning waiting to get into the house. But what I try to do is do as much research in advance, and then if I see something or see a couple things that are worth a visit, my hopes is by the time I get there, they'll still be there. But I think people have different views on estate sales. That's just personally what I tend to do in advance, and then when getting there. And again, estate sales, similar to garage sales, there's plenty of room for negotiation, especially if you go maybe on like a day two, where they're going to be selling things 50% off or even better. And especially if you buy more items and you pay in cash. So for me, that's probably like my number three. My number four, I would say, is Facebook Marketplace. Facebook Marketplace is tough just because there's so much competition. The items that are on Facebook Marketplace not only are probably it's a 80% or maybe 75, 80% are either resellers or incredibly high priced items, people pricing out things more than they should be. So it's tough. It's all about timing, though, which again is if you don't have time as a part-time reseller, can be difficult. But you can set up notifications of collections going up live, so you get early notification once something's posted. It's really a race to whoever can contact the seller first. So that's what I do is I set up notifications of new collections, new vintage collections, antique collections for sale, use different buzzwords that'll give you that immediate notification. For me, I've had success. I've only had, I'd say maybe five really good wins over a 3 year period with fake Facebook Marketplace, but they were a really huge win. So I bought a really large Star Wars collection from someone, filled up my entire car worth of items, and it was just a great overall buy. I bought a large vintage baseball card collection there. And then I also bought a large collection of 1980s toys. So it doesn't happen very often. It's all about timing. But Facebook Marketplace really is a good place to look at least as you can, and hopefully set up some notifications and get that advance notice when something's available. One other thing that I would say too, that's maybe another source is just to build your network. Talk with people, whether it's you're going to pick up items in an estate sale or you're going to a garage sale and you just happen to talk to someone else is there, that you tell them, hey, listen, I do tend to buy items that are antiques or vintage. If you know someone, feel free to let me know. I actually have a business card that I share with them. But you never know what that might lead to. If maybe it'll lead to a big bulk buy of someone that was anticipating they were going to put an auction up or they were going to do an estate sale, but they think of you first. I haven't had as many wins with that, but you never know. So I'd say when you're out and about, always bring that up as just something to consider as maybe another way to get to items before anyone else does. Now, as we talk about sourcing, one of the other areas I wanted to talk about is what not to buy. So for me, like I said, pricing is important. I want to make sure, even if I love an item, that I'm going to make sure that I buy it at a price that I can 2x or 3x. But some of the things I really try to stay away from, especially if you're a beginner, number one is clothes. I try to stay away from clothes altogether. I don't sell very many clothes even now. Maybe some uniforms from like sports teams or something that's maybe I've sold some antique Red Sox jerseys in the past, but clothes, especially as you're getting started, they're so hard to determine if it's going to be worth something. Sometimes, a lot of the time, they're going to need to be washed or cleaned. They're really tough to take pictures of, especially if you're part time, you don't have a full setup. And then also sizing matters, especially for vintage clothes. So there's a lot of times if you ship something to someone and it just doesn't fit like they'd hoped, tends to be a very heavily returned item. And for me, I don't sell like new apparel or anything. So I'd say that's just one area that can be really tricky, especially if you're out and about sourcing. Another thing I would say is art. Art can be so hard to determine if it's authentic, if it's original, exactly who the artist is, what exactly it's painted of, or what the print is. It takes up a lot of space. It's hard to take pictures of, and then it's hard to ship. So especially if you're getting started, I'd say that's another area that I tend to stay away from is art. And then, as I said in a prior video, I try to stay away from vintage electronics, antique electronics, because there's just numerous areas that can be difficult, whether it works, doesn't work, whether it needs to be tested in some capacity, how heavy it is when you ship it, and then when it gets to somebody, if it even works. So those are some of the ones, and there's plenty of categories, but those are the ones that stand out that I wanted to speak of in regards to some of the items to stay away from, especially as a beginner. And then in terms of when you're out and about and trying to find out if something's valuable or not, it's going to take time. It took me two, three, I'm still learning what's what and what's expensive and what works and what doesn't. But as you're getting started, don't be afraid to use your phone. Don't be afraid to use ChatGPT. Don't be afraid to use Google Lens. These are ways that you can get a quick scan of something if you think it looks valuable. Take a look and see what it tells you. You know, especially, I wish I had it when I was first getting started because it is really good detail, really good information that even if it's not something that's worth buying, it'll shoot out a whole bunch of information to say, hey, this is a replica of this. It would be worth something, but this is the reason it's a replica. Or this is an item that is a great toy in the 1940s, but based on the research that comes back on AI or Google Lens, it says it just doesn't sell very well. So as you're just getting started, that's a good way to cheat a little bit, but within 30 seconds, be able to pull up information that's helpful. And then in terms of like eBay, I'd mentioned on a prior video, but if you are doing research on an item, say you find a glazed stoneware jug, and you're not sure if it's going to sell, if you go into your phone, you go into eBay and type in glazed stoneware jug, and you see all the items that pull up at the different prices, if it's what's for sale currently, you could see there's a jug that's for sale for $1,000, but that's not going to help you. What you need to do is then go to sold items because that's where the right information is going to be. That's where you're going to see the true value of what you have. When you go to sold, it's going to pull up then all the glazed stoneware jugs, but it's going to show you what actually sold and what for what price. So if you wanted to see what sold recently beyond the research that you do with AI or with Google Lens, that's the most telling spot you're going to find your information. You'll even maybe hear someone at a garage sale or a yard sale or an estate sale saying, "Oh, that stoneware jug, it's listed on eBay for $500. So that's what we're selling it for." It doesn't matter. You know, do your research. Don't just go with what it sells it's selling for, but what it has sold for. Um, so those are some, I think, some really good tips when it comes to sourcing. My next video will be on pricing, but I hope this gave you kind of a good understanding of at least where to get started from a sourcing standpoint. If you have questions, feel free to put them down below. Be happy to answer anything relative to this. And I appreciate you watching. If you like the content so far, feel free to give me a follow, give me a like. I appreciate your time, and I'll see you in the next video.